I was searching on eBay for MacBook Pros and I stumbled across a bunch of 2015 ones going for around $200. Now, this got me thinking, even though this laptop is 8 years old, is it still a good buy for a budget laptop in 2023? In this video, I'm using a 15-inch 2015 MacBook Pro with 16 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM, a 2.2 gigahertz i7 processor, and a patched version of macOS Sonoma. Now, normally, this MacBook is no longer supported by macOS, at least not officially, which means you'll be running either macOS Mojave or, alternatively, you can get a patched version of a more recent OS. Now, if you do decide to do this, I would recommend 8 gigabytes of RAM at least if you're planning on running the most current macOS version. While 4 gigabytes might be passable, you will definitely notice a significant slowdown in performance. As far as the port selection that you get on these 2015 MacBook Pros, on the left, you'll find the MagSafe charging port, 2 Thunderbolt 2 ports, a USB 3 port, and a headphone jack. The right side offers an additional USB 3 port, HDMI, and a full-sized SD card slot, which is definitely nice. This is definitely a lot more ports than you would expect when you buy like a M1 MacBook Air or an M2 MacBook Air, because those just have 2 USB-C ports. Now, in terms of performance, don't expect this to be as good as like an M1 or an M2 MacBook Pro or even a MacBook Air, because Apple Silicon has come so far that those machines are basically untouchable when you're looking at older machines. But for most tasks that a MacBook user, or at least the average MacBook user, would do on this, it's completely fine. Applications still open quick. You can do any amount of web browsing that you want on this. Videos load perfectly. You can even probably get some light photo editing done and some 1080p video editing done if you really wanted to. I did run some benchmarks on this MacBook, and in Geekbench CPU, I got a single core score of 1000 and a multi-core score of 3500, which obviously isn't anywhere close, really, to the M2 MacBook Air scores, which were 2500 in single core and 10,000 in multi-core. But remember, you're going to be paying like $800 more for a M2 MacBook Air. Now, as far as battery life goes for this, it really depends on what eBay seller and what eBay listing you buy. Some listings might come with a brand new battery installed, and then the battery life would be great for most people. But sometimes you can get listings that say service recommended, and then that battery will literally last 10 minutes on a charge. So if you were looking, try to find one that's under 500 battery cycles. That should give you a couple hours of use with this. And yeah, so basically just anything under 500 battery cycles would be perfect. If you're looking at a listing and it doesn't seem to show the battery cycles, you can always message the eBay seller as well. As far as upgradability, unfortunately you can't upgrade the RAM on this, but you can upgrade the SSD. So my configuration has a 256 gig SSD, but that can be upgraded all the way up to 2 terabytes if you wanted to. Now, you would probably spend more on the SSD than you would on the computer, but that's completely up to you. I'm not even going to mention gaming because nobody should be gaming on a MacBook. I mean, unless you're running like indie titles or playing like chess or anything like web browser based, you'll be fine, but anything like graphic intensive, you're not going to want to play on this. Now, in regards of Apple Silicon versus Intel, yes, Apple Silicon is going to be a lot better than Intel-based Macs, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the Intel Macs are bad. I'd actually argue it's a good thing that Apple Silicon has come out, because since Apple Silicon is so good, the prices for Intel-based Macs are dropping so significantly that it makes the bang for the buck way better on an Intel-based Mac than it is on an Apple Silicon Mac. Now, let's say you were going to compare this to a brand new laptop, Windows laptop, that you would buy for $200. If you were to go with a brand new Windows laptop, you're going to be sacrificing on pretty much everything except maybe not the battery life, because you'd get a brand new battery. But the performance is going to be worse. The build quality is definitely going to be worse. The screen's going to be worse. And the overall experience is just going to be worse, because most $200-ish Windows laptops are going to be running Windows S mode, which means you can't even really download programs from the internet. You have to go pretty much only through Microsoft's App Store. So overall, I definitely say this is a great budget laptop if you're going to college or just need a laptop to do basic things. Obviously, if you want to game or if you're doing 4K video editing or stuff like that, this laptop isn't for you. But for most people, I'd say this is one of the best laptops that you can buy for around $200, especially if you're a MacBook person. That wraps up my review for the 2015 MacBook Pro. Hope you guys enjoyed. Consider leaving a like if you liked it and subscribe.